Here are 25 facts from 2023 that support fantasy football sleepers. Number 1, Michael Wilson finished number 15 for wide receivers in yards per target at 9.7. Number 2, in the 5 games Michael Wilson was targeted 6+ times, he finished as the wide receiver 6 in week 4, wide receiver 48 in week 8, wide receiver 55 in week 10, wide receiver 24 in week 17, and the wide receiver 24 again in week 18 for fantasy football. Number 3, Khalil Shakir finished 13th in slot snaps for wide receivers, but still managed weeks of 92, 115, and 105 receiving yards. Number 4, through 2 playoff games, Khalil Shakir finished number 2 in targets, tied for number 1 in receptions, number 2 in receiving yards, and number 1 in receiving touchdowns for the Buffalo Bills. Number 5, Bryce Young finished as the quarterback 9 twice in 2023. Week 5, where he threw for 247 yards, 3 touchdowns, and 2 interceptions, and then again in Week 16, throwing for 312 yards and 2 touchdowns. Number 6, Roschon Johnson, when catching 4+ passes, finished as the running back 8 in Week 1, running back 37 in Week 10, running back 21 in Week 12, and the running back 24 in Week 15. Number 7, Chase Brown finished with 61 rushing yards in Week 13 and 43 rushing yards in Week 18. Brown caught 10 passes during the 4-week span of Weeks 14 through 17, all while never playing above 30% of the snaps. Number 8, Deshaun Watson played in 5 full games. Across these 5 games, Watson finishes the quarterback 5 in Week 1, quarterback 27 in Week 2, quarterback 10 in Week 3, quarterback 8 in Week 9, and the quarterback 14 in Week 10. Number 9, Javonte Williams played above 50% of the snaps in 6 weeks in 2023 after tearing his ACL in 2022. In those games, he finishes the running back 20 in Week 7, running back 9 in Week 8, running back 5 in Week 10, running back 28 in Week 12, running back 23 in Week 13, and the running back 12 in Week 14. Number 10, Marvin Mims Jr. finished his rookie season with 11.4 yards per target and 17.1 yards per reception. Number 11, Jameson Williams finished games with 26.5, 22, 25.5, and 34.5 yards per reception. He also finished with 17.5 yards per reception in the divisional round. Number 12, Dontavian Wicks finished number 11 in yards per target with 10 and number 25 in yards per reception with 14.9 for wide receivers his rookie season. Number 13, Josh Downs, another rookie, weeks 3 through 8, averaged 7.33 targets, 5.5 receptions, 67.67 receiving yards, and 14.23 fantasy points. Downs was the wide receiver 14 during that 6-game stretch. Number 14, Michael Mayer finished number 12 in yards per target with 7.6 and number 9 in yards per reception with 11.3 for tight ends as a rookie. Number 15, Mike Williams, across the first 3 weeks of football before tearing his ACL, ranked number 15 in total fantasy points. He averaged 16.7 points per game, and number 13 in receiving yards, which was 83 per game for wide receivers. Number 16, Demario Douglas finished number 25 in yards after the catch for wide receivers and led the Patriots in targets with 79 through 14 games as a rookie. Number 17, Rashid Shaheed finished number 10 in average depth of his targets with 14.6, number 15 in deep targets with 24, number 17 in yards per target at 9.6, and number 15 in yards per reception at 15.6 for wide receivers as a sophomore. Number 18, Kendre Miller played 35% plus of the snaps twice his rookie season and finishes the running back 16 in Week 5 and the running back 13 in Week 18 in those games. Number 19, Wan'Dale Robinson, following the Week 13 bye, averaged 6.6 targets, 4.8 receptions, 52 receiving yards, and 12.4 fantasy points per game. Number 20, Wan'Dale Robinson finished as a top 24 wide receiver, Week 6 as the wide receiver 24, Week 9 as the wide receiver 18, Week 14 as the wide receiver 13, and Week 17 as the wide receiver 10. Robinson tore his ACL Week 11 of 2022. Number 21, Tyler Conklin finished 2023 with 87 targets, which was number 13 for tight ends, and 5.1 per game, which marked his 3rd straight season earning exactly 87 targets. Number 22, Najee Harris, weeks 7 through 18, following the bye, scored the 10th most fantasy points and 13.5 per game, rushed for the 2nd most yards at 788, and tied for number 5 in rushing touchdowns with 8. Number 23, Jackson Smith-Njigba finished his rookie season number 21 for wide receivers in yards after the catch and earned 7+ targets across 5 weeks with DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett present. Number 24, Cade Otton finished his sophomore season number 1 for tight ends in snap share at 95.9%, and he ran the second most routes. Number 25, Cade Otton, through 2 Tampa Bay playoff games, finished tied for number 1 in targets with 19, number 1 in receptions with 13, and number 2 in receiving yards with 154 for the Buccaneers. The 154 receiving yards ranked 10th for all players in the playoffs. Plugging sports and fantasy content daily, so be sure you are following.